So far, we have covered the concept of statistics and data collection, and the concept of mode. For today's lesson, we will be looking at constructing an ungrouped frequency table from raw data. Now, before we begin, let me remind you that if someone is speaking, we show full respect by listening, and if you wish to ask or answer a question, you raise your hand. Now, you will notice that each group has been assigned a group number, and in front of you, there are handouts which you have to go ahead and take one of. And there is also a pair of dice. To start off the class, you all are going to do a little activity for me. So what I would like you all to do is, within your group, each person is going to roll the dice once, and you're going to record the number that appears on each die. Okay? So let's do that as quickly as possible.
Students will now take turns rolling the pair of dice once and recording their results.
Okay, so is everyone finished? Yes? Alright, so I'm going to call on each student, and you all are going to tell me the two numbers that appeared on your dice. Let's begin with group 1. First person, 5 and 3. Next, 2 and 4. Next person, 1 and 5.
At this time, the teacher will continue to record students' results until all have been recorded on the board.
Okay, so now that we have the raw data recorded on the board, do you all think that you can just look at this data for a few seconds only and identify the mode? Let's see. I'm going to give you all just 5 seconds to write down what you all think is the mode of this data set. Beginning now. Okay, stop. Time is up. All writing materials down, please. I'm going to ask 3 students to tell me what you all wrote down as the mode. Okay, so one student said 4, one student wrote down 5, and one student wrote down 3. What do you all notice about these responses? They are all different. What does this mean? Is it easy to identify the mode by just looking at the data for a few seconds only? No. Why not? Because the data is mixed up. Now, can you all think of a way in which we can make this data easier to read? Yes, we can arrange the data into some sort of order. What else would be easy to see if the data was not mixed up? If we had some sort of order to this data? Yes, we may be able to see the number that occurred the least number of times. Anybody else? Yes, we may be able to rank the numbers from most popular to least popular. At this point, I would like you all to turn to page 3 of your handout, and we are looking at the section Benefits of Data Organization in Statistics. Now, as we just discussed, and as your first point shows, data organization makes the data easy to read. Secondly, data organization allows the researcher to identify trends in the data being considered. And when we talk about trends, we are talking about patterns. For example, Trinidad and Tobago records the number of murders that occurred throughout the year. And by doing so, we might be able to identify whether there is a certain time of the year when the murder rate spikes or when it drops drastically. Thirdly, data organization makes it easier to identify statistical measures such as mode, maximum, and minimum. Fourthly, data organization facilitates easy identification of anomalies in a data set. And when we talk about anomalies, we are talking about rare occurrences in a data set. For example, suppose I gave you all a test, and in that test, every student except one student scored 15 out of 20 to 20 out of 20. And that one student got a score of 1 out of 20. His score will be considered an anomaly because it is not what is expected when you look at the data set, or it is a rare occurrence in the data set. And lastly, data organization allows the researcher to draw valid conclusions. Okay, before we move on, each group will be given a chart that looks like this, a glue stick, and some word cutouts. You will have 2 minutes to complete this chart by filling in each blank with the appropriate word. Beginning now.
At this time, students will work in groups to complete a fill-in-the-blank activity by selecting words from a set of bristleboard cutouts and sticking them in the correct places to summarize the benefits of data organization in statistics.
Okay, so now that we have discussed the importance of data organization, we now want to look at how to construct an ungrouped frequency table from raw data. And to do so, I'm going to ask you all to look carefully at a video presentation, and within your groups, you are going to try to write down the steps that are involved in creating an ungrouped frequency table. Please pay attention to the video.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Aftermath. In today's video, we'll be answering the question, what is a frequency table? There are a lot of ways to organize data, and frequency tables are just another one of those ways. So let's look at some data and create a frequency table for it to learn more about what exactly they are. Alright, so here is our situation and some data. The peak quality, which is a ship, took guests on 20 whale watching tours in the last 2 days. The number of whales sighted on each of the 20 tours is given as, and then our data is listed. So each one of these numbers is the number of whales seen on one of 20 whale watching tours. So let's go ahead and make a frequency table for this data, which will make it very easy to see how many times each data point occurred.
Students will continue to look at the first 4 minutes and 20 seconds of the video and attempt to derive the steps for constructing an ungrouped frequency table.
Okay, so can a member of group 2 please stand and tell us the steps that you all came up with? Excellent. Just some things to remember. Firstly, when doing your tallies, please remember that every 5th tally mark is represented by a diagonal stroke that is drawn across the 4 previously drawn vertical strokes. So your 5th tally mark can look like this, or it can look like that. Secondly, when crossing off observations from your raw data set, please move in a left to right direction to avoid leaving out any observations. And thirdly, when your frequency table is completed, always carry out a check to ensure that the total frequency matches the total number of observations in your data set. Let me explain. In this case, I have 20 observations. So I can look at my frequency column, and if I add these frequencies, I'm going to get 1 plus 4, which is 5, plus 3, that's 8, plus 3, 11, plus 3, 14, plus 2, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So my total frequency here is 20, and that will tell me that all the observations have been accounted for. Okay, so you already know that the mode of a data set is the observation of value that occurs the most number of times or has the highest frequency. And what the frequency table does is actually record the frequency of each observation or the number of times that each observation occurs. So to identify the mode from the frequency table, we start by looking at the frequency column, and we are looking for the highest frequency. Now in this case, the highest frequency is 4. But that is not the mode. The mode is the observation that occurs the most number of times. So we have to look for the corresponding observation, and that will be 1. So my mode will be 1. Okay, so now that we have learned how to construct an ungrouped frequency table, each group is going to be provided with a pack of colored beads, and within your groups you all are going to create an ungrouped frequency table for the distribution of colors in your pack of beads. Then, when your table is constructed, you're going to use your table to identify the mode for me. Okay?
Students will now work in groups to construct an ungrouped frequency table for the distribution of colors in the pack of beads provided. Before beginning this activity, the teacher will entertain students' questions to ensure that everyone understands fully what he or she is required to do. The students will then be given 3 minutes to complete the assigned task, after which the teacher will visit groups to check their work.
Okay, so each one of you has been given a sheet that looks like this, showing a sample examination question and a response that was submitted by a student. Your task is to examine the student's response carefully to determine whether or not he or she is correct. If there are any errors, you are to correct the errors for the student.
Students will now examine the sample response to determine whether it is fully correct. If errors are found, the students will make the necessary corrections.
Okay, so now that everyone is finished, I'm going to ask a volunteer to stand and indicate all the errors that you found and the corrections that you made. Okay, so firstly, the headings for the second and third columns need to be switched. The heading for the second column should be tally, and the heading for the third column should be frequency. Okay, the frequency for beef should be 12 instead of 11. The tally marks for fish are incorrectly drawn. That fifth tally mark should be a diagonal stroke. Okay, the frequency for chicken should be 7 instead of 6. The frequency for cheese should be 9 instead of 11. And that's it. Okay, great, excellent. Okay, so I want to see how well you all have grasped what was done in class today. So what you are going to do for me within your groups is construct an ungrouped frequency table for the data that we collected at the start of the class when you roll the dice. So I'm going to give you all 5 minutes to do this. You all can begin now.
At this time, students will use the data collected at the start of the session to construct an ungrouped frequency table. During this activity, the teacher will move around monitoring groups, providing assistance where needed, and then check their work.
Okay, so to end off today's session, I'm going to give each student a sticky note. What you are going to do for me is summarize what you have learned in today's session, and you are going to stick it on our Facebook newsfeed on your way out. Also, there are some activity sheets on this desk. Please collect one as you exit the classroom and complete it for homework. Thank you all for being an excellent class and have a wonderful day.
Students will now be given 3 minutes in which to summarize what they have learned from the session and stick it to a poster to resemble a Facebook newsfeed.